In 2018, a man named Jack Murphy published a book called Democrat to Deplorable. He had traveled around the country speaking to people who voted for Trump, but previously had voted Democrat to better understand why they made the switch. I mean, the media was telling us Trump was evil. He was the worst. He was a racist, yet people still wanted to vote for the man. All in all, around 9 million or so people ended up switching and voting for Donald Trump. And what made that happen? Well, a lot of reasons. And it seems like we're seeing a lot of similar reasons happen now. It looks like another wave of Democrats will reject the party and switch, voting for Donald Trump in the upcoming election. And it may lead to a landslide. Now, I know you may be saying, Tim, the polls do not show this. That's ridiculous. And yes, maybe that's the case. Maybe it's wishful thinking. Maybe the media is completely right and everybody just hates Donald Trump. But the signs are right in front of us. Numerous stories have emerged talking about Democrats quitting the party, Democrats registering as Republicans, or how about that time when all of these C-SPAN callers kept flooding the line saying they were Democrats, but Democrat no more, and would be voting for Republicans. Recently, Democrats for Life took out a full-page ad in the New York Times saying, in a full-page ad in the New York Times today, Dems for Life and more than 100 current and former elected Democrats urge Joe Biden and the Democratic Party to moderate its positions on abortion. We cannot make the same mistakes as we did in 2016. They note the Democrats lost tons of votes because they're moving way too far left on the issue of abortion. And it's not just this issue. The issue of violence is a huge factor. In fact, for someone like me, I said earlier this year I wasn't going to vote for the president, but then the riots happened and safety comes first. I started thinking about my family. I started thinking about the riots in Chicago, and I said Trump needs to win. We need to see some kind of justice. And now we're seeing morality policing, where the police will arrest people for defending their own homes and businesses. This cannot be allowed to continue. In a recent opinion piece by Bridget Fetisi, a political commentator and just general personality, she wrote about letters from the politically homeless, people who feel like they've been left behind. And Trump supporters, you better pay attention because there are conservatives who refuse to vote for Donald Trump, certainly one of his weaknesses. But it seems like, and according to Bridget and in my personal opinion, way more people are abandoning the Democrats in favor of Donald Trump. So I want to go over why. I'm going to read to you what Democrats for Life have to say. In fact, as Democrats may not want to admit it, but a large portion of the Democratic Party is pro-life. And that means many others in the party are moderate when it comes to the issue of abortion. They're abandoning this, and that's going to drive people straight into the arms of Donald Trump. In Bridget Fetisi's article, she mentions a quote from one man who said, "The far left is basically a right-wing recruiting machine, and I have been warning about this over and over again." So I'll show you some of the context, and I'll show you how the media is attacking third parties in a desperate bid. Or the Democrats on the left, the establishment. They're attacking third party votes. There's nowhere to go. You might be saying, I don't want to vote for any of them. Oh, but they're attacking the Green Party now. I'm sorry, it really feels like we're being backed into a corner, and the only option is Donald Trump. Let me show you some of the opinions from people who are saying they're planning on switching parties because it looks like another wave is coming and it will be bigger than the last. Before we get started, however, head over to timcast.com/donate. If you'd like to support my work, there are many ways you can give, and there's a PO box if you want to send me some stuff. But the best thing you can do is share this article. Share this video. It's not an article. I don't have a big marketing department or anything. I just rely on word of mouth. So if you think this is a good video and that people should hear what I have to say, please consider sharing it, because if everybody who watched shared, this video would be bigger than CNN like that. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And let me start with this first story about pro-life Democrats. Many of you watching may be pro-choice. In fact, I am. But I also recognize that many people think there's a reasonable position to take on the issue of abortion that's not just completely, no restrictions at all or no chance at all. I think there's a middle ground, and I think Democrats want this too. And there are pro-life Democrats who actually agree with Republicans. They are being cut off completely. You got to imagine a large portion of these Democrats are going to vote for Trump. Here's the story. Pro-life Democrats appeal to Biden Democratic Party to change stance on abortion or risk losing voters, from CBN News. They say Democrats for Life of America is urging the Biden campaign and the Democratic Party to adjust their position on abortion to retain more pro-life voters. The organization sent a firm message to Democrats through a notice in the New York Times this weekend, highlighting three main concerns. Democratic leaders supporting extreme abortion policies, like later-term abortions. Pro-life Democratic voters switching parties over the difference. A betrayal of Democratic Party values. What's really crazy to me about this is how many people that are Democrats endorsed this message and are pro-life. I can't believe any pro-life Democrats still exist. The party's gone so far left. I think you're talking to a brick wall. They're not going to change their position. They're chasing after a nebulous far left mirage they see on Twitter. It doesn't exist and it doesn't represent America. But the Democratic Party is obsessed with the media, and the media is leading them astray. CBN reports the letter was endorsed by more than 100 current and former Democratic politicians, to include 4 governors and lieutenant governors, including the current governor of Louisiana, John Bel Edwards, 9 members of Congress, including Colin Peterson, who won his primary this week. I'll stop there. I mean, it's amazing to see that the Democrats still have some more conservative members because we need unity in this country. But I'm not entirely convinced that dude can win right now, especially if a Republican runs with basically the same positions. We saw what happened when the moderate Democrats won. They gave everything to Nancy Pelosi and went nuts, impeaching Trump, failing, getting nothing done. Why would we want more of that? Why would anyone, especially a pro-life Democrat? They say 9 members of Congress, we read that, 56 state legislators, including Deborah Falella, deputy majority leader in Rhode Island, 32 local officials, 6 Democratic nominees. Many more told DFLA they supported the letter, but couldn't publicize it because they fear the power of Planned Parenthood and narrow pro-choice America within the Democratic Party. In 2016, Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party lost to Donald Trump because they failed to take moderate and pro-life voters seriously, Day declared. Our party has traditionally been very tolerant and welcoming of diverse views. Yet it has pushed away Americans who are with us on so many issues, but share a strong conviction on abortion. This is just one swing issue, and I don't want to bury you in this because I'm sure there's a lot of people who say, yeah, you know what? Good riddance. I'm sure there are many Democrats who are pro-choice saying, we don't want them. Well, you're going to lose. I personally am pro-choice. I had a really great conversation with Glenn Beck on his podcast about the differences, and we smiled, shook hands, and said, I guess we can't agree. But we did agree that we're all Americans and we're going to fight together, we're going to live together and learn how to solve these problems. And guess what? Sometimes you lose, sometimes you win. At the end of the day, we're just trying to figure out how to work together. That's been lost in the modern left. They don't care. They would reject all the pro-life Democrats. I won't. I'll sit down and we'll have a conversation and say, where can we agree? What can we do? I know it's really, really difficult. I'm sure there's already people who are mad at me for saying I'm pro-choice. I get it. It's a seriously enraging issue for everybody. But I think what the right has right now, what Trump has right now, a discussion. That's it. You can talk to me. I'll listen. I will absolutely have a conversation. And you know what? I might lose. I respect that. I'll play by the rules, same as the right has agreed to. But the modern Democrats are changing the rules. They're cheating, and people are getting fed up. Before I get into the article from Bridget Fedesi, which is amazing, by the way, I want to show you a couple things. The 2020 voter registration race from Axios notes. They say that Democrats are registering new voters in key battlegrounds, but a lot of it, here's a quote, but a lot of it has to do with voters switching. I'm sorry. Let me start over. The voter registration gap between Democrats and Republicans has narrowed in some of these key states, according to Trump victory and Axios' review of those state records. What this means is Republicans are gaining on Democrats. The gap is shrinking because Republicans are getting closer, they say. A lot of it has to do with voters switching parties or dropping out of the electorate. Not necessarily a surge of new voters registering as Republican, nor indicating new Trump voters, according to Dave Wasserman of the Cook Political Report. Democrats are still registering more new voters than Republicans in many key states. What this story notes is that there are Democrats dropping out. There are Democrats switching parties. You see, when you talk about Republicans registering new voters, many people assume it's people who never voted before. And that's true. Trump did that in 2016. But right now, it seems like they're pulling Democrat voters from the party and they're becoming Republicans or quitting the Democratic Party outright. The Democrats, however, in many states are registering entirely new people. It's a huge advantage for them. But we're not talking about people becoming Democrats, which, again, is an advantage for them, and Trump supporters better pay attention. We're talking about Democrats rejecting the party and switching. We have this story from Politico. I want to be in the Trump party. GOP rides voter registration surge in key state. Since 2016, Republicans had netted nearly 7 times as many registered voters in Pennsylvania as Democrats. Another example that in some very, very important key battleground states, Trump is absolutely winning. But I bring you now to the article from Bridget Fetisi, Letters from the Politically Homeless. She said, almost every Democrat voting for Trump has a story about being ostracized, shamed, or losing a friend. The reason why I think this story is important is because it's also a warning to Trump voters. There are conservatives who will not vote for Trump. And you need to pay attention and understand why if you really want to maximize your potential and win. I'll tell you this, Trump supporters, the Democrats aren't listening at all. No matter how many times we seem to scream in their faces, stop doing this, please stop, they don't listen. Do you think they're going to listen to pro-life Democrats saying, please stop doing this? Of course not. Guess what? Donald Trump is. Republicans are. I've had more conversations with conservatives who have said they'd be willing to compromise than any leftist. The left just says, get out, bigot, et cetera, et cetera. There's no real compromise. They want more. They want more. You say, how about, we can't do Medicare for all. How about a public option? They say, no, universal health care. We say, okay, so we'll do Medicare for all, but we'll still have private insurance. No. They say abolish private health care. I say you're pulling too hard. There's no compromise at all. No discussion. I will not jump off a cliff for your dreams, your ideals. I don't know if they'll work. Moderation. The Republicans and the Trump supporters are saying, okay, let's talk. And now all of a sudden you have former liberals, Democrats going deplorable because the Republicans are saying, we're willing to negotiate with you. That's all we ask for. That's all we need. And I say, okay. I can sit down with Catholic conservatives and say, we really disagree on these issues, but I'm really glad that we can sit here and laugh and have a discussion and not beat each other's throats, even though we really see the world in a different way. Well, here's the article from Bridget Fetisi. And again, a warning to Trump supporters. She says, Americans aren't just fleeing liberal strongholds like California, Chicago, and New York in droves. We are moving politically too. As I often find myself caught in the crossfire of the culture wars, I also find myself at the crossroads of this migration. Since my last column headlined, Why I Won't Vote, I've received hundreds of emails from others who feel politically homeless. I've also heard from many who have voted Democrat or Republican their entire lives and for the first time in 2020 will vote for the opposite party. Lifetime conservatives are voting for Biden. Independents are being radicalized to vote red or blue. People who didn't vote for Donald Trump in 2016 are enthusiastically voting for him now. The best part is, it seems like Bridget's conclusion is that Trump is going to landslide. Even though there are Republicans, lifetime conservatives, switching and voting for Biden, not nearly enough. And I think that's the important factor. But keep in mind, this could be confirmation bias. It could be an illusion. If Trump supporters get complacent and think they're winning this massive silent majority and walk away campaign, bursting at the seams, well, that's when you lose. Never underestimate your opponent. And that's the problem Democrats are currently making. Democrats refuse to negotiate and accept the fact that they are driving people away in droves. So I think personally, based on my experience and my opinions, the Republicans are winning. They're absolutely winning. Donald Trump will win. I don't like the Republican Party. I don't like the Democratic Party, but Donald Trump is something different. And there is a new wave of populist right-wing individuals entering Congress, and there now. And I actually respect them for their populist positions on many issues. Anti-war, free speech. I'll take what I can get. If the Democrats have gone insane, sorry. Bridget writes, I even heard from a guy who hasn't voted since Nader, but is coming out to support Trump. Many who identify as politically homeless are opting to vote third party or, like me, not to vote in the presidential category at all. She says, allow me to clarify something I should have made clear in my previous column. I will be voting down ballot. She says, I recognize the limitations of anecdotal evidence, but reading hundreds of emails, one starts to see patterns. My overall gut instinct from everything I'm hearing is that I won't be at all surprised if Trump wins in a landslide. And that the only person who can beat Donald J. Trump is Donald J. Trump. And this is where you've got good news for Democrats and Republicans. Now, look, Bridget's saying that she thinks she wouldn't be surprised if Trump wins in a landslide. I completely agree. But that the only person who can beat Trump is Trump, that's also true too. And it's a weakness for Republicans and it's a weakness for Trump. And that's why Democrats don't care about Biden. It's for Trump or against Trump. It is a referendum on Trump right now. The craziest thing to me about this is that the people who hate Trump hate him so much they would watch this country burn to the ground for hatred of one man. Donald Trump is not the government. Donald Trump is not our country. He is one person, one. We have a Congress, we have a Senate, we have a Supreme Court. Yes, Donald Trump can appoint people. He appointed Kavanaugh. But Kavanaugh and Gorsuch, who have been appointed by Trump, have not always agreed with him. Do not destroy the United States of America because you hate one man. Now, Joe Biden is also one man, but Joe Biden is incapable of flying this plane. He's incapable of steering this ship. I could be wrong. You see, many of these Democrats feel the same way about Trump, but I think they're incorrect. Bridget writes, the first trend I noticed is that it appears the mainstream media massively overplayed their hand and red-pilled a large portion of blue America. Over and over again, I hear the same story. People were locked up for months on end. They socially distanced and gave up working in order to flatten the curve. They missed funerals, weddings, graduations, schools, and seeing loved ones die. Then came the protests in response to police brutality. And for a moment, it seemed like America was united against the police. But then epidemiologists came out in support of thousands of people gathering. It's only natural that folks sitting at home started to question the information they were receiving. And then came the riots. Undecided independents, many of whom were leaning toward Biden, cite the riots as having cemented their decision to vote for Trump. And I will tell you, that's my story. And then Trump came out and got these historic peace agreements, and I'm very much a fan of those as well. My friends, my family members, they all tell me the riots scared them, and they were shocked to see exactly what Bridget just pointed out. How many times did you hear, make sure you wear your mask, otherwise you're killing grandma, shut down your business, shut down your life, go broke, go on unemployment, and too bad, we're not going to pass COVID legislation to give you relief unless we get a restriction, unless we take away voter integrity. Nancy Pelosi wanting to do away with voter signature verification and wanting to ban voter ID. What does that have to do with the fact that we're suffering? It feels like coercion. You're threatening us. We destroyed your jobs. We destroyed your business. And if you want a semblance of what you once had, we'll sprinkle crumbs on you as long as the Republicans give us what we want and alter the election in favor of us. What? They said COVID is dangerous. Then Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx came out and said, no, you can vote in person. just wear a mask. What? You mean all that was for nothing? I'll clarify. Nancy Pelosi didn't want to literally just abolish voter signature verification. They want to do this new rule where that people counting votes can't reject it if the signatures don't match. So your mail-in ballot gets sent in. They look at it and they say, John Smith voted for Biden. Then they look at the voter registration for John Smith and the signature doesn't match. What do? They can't reject it. It has to be able to go back to the voter to correct, meaning it'll jam up the election for weeks. And if they can't reject it, many of them might just say, whatever, it's fine, I'll just accept it. This resulted, and among other policy changes in Pennsylvania, I believe, of around 1 in 4 election officials resigning, saying we have no idea what's going on. Why? They told us that Black Lives Matter was okay. Go ahead and protest without a mask. It's fine. Social distancing doesn't matter. Just go protest. Then when right-wing groups came out to protest, they said, you're killing grandma. How insane is this? I believe it. I believe it's a huge issue. For me, the riots, the danger. Now Joe Biden's coming out and saying, gun control, we're going to ban weapons of war, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, are you nuts? Your campaign staff donated to bail these people out. Kamala Harris solicited donations to bail these people out. I had to go and buy guns for the first time in my life, and I didn't want to do that. Now I'm a gun guy. Look at that. And then you have the nerve to come out and say you want to take my guns away from me? These people are romping around city streets, destroying everything. The police are being defunded, and now you've driven me to buy guns and you want to take them from me? You are insane. Absolutely insane. Maybe we'll lose. Maybe Trump won't win. I have no idea. But I'm sick and tired of all of this insanity. I am not pro-life. I was never pro-gun. I didn't want to have to vote for Trump, but now I feel like I have no choice. It almost feels like everything the Democrats are doing is on purpose. I moved far away. I'm actually really happy with it, to be completely honest. I'm in the middle of nowhere. There's like not even a road to my house. And I got mountains and sun and nature, and there's like deer running around. Strangely relaxing. So I'm kind of happy it happened because it's great to be out in the middle of nowhere. You can be noisy. But I left these cities because the riots are getting bad and they're not doing anything about it. In fact, the only person who seems to be trying is Trump and Bill Barr, the DHS. At the local level, they're doing nothing. Last night in Portland, check this out. Vandalism, no arrests as protests continue in Portland. No arrests. Are you kidding me? For a while, we had calm. And it's because, in my opinion, partly due to the fact that Trump made some moves. The feds deputized Oregon State Police. I've said it a billion times, so forgive me, but it's important context. And then many of these organizers disappeared. So when the left came and attacked an ICE facility, they rioted, they got swept up instantly. The feds aren't having it. So then they moved to downtown Portland once again, where the feds don't have jurisdiction. And there it is. No arrests. These people have lost it. And I'm looking at Trump saying, you do your thing, because the Democrats are nowhere to be found. Bridget goes on. She says, for many former Democrats, the mostly peaceful protests were the pivotal moment that they abandoned the mainstream media and started seeking out other perspectives. They began listening to independent journalists and, more importantly, seeking out the source material itself. One man wrote, quote, I started to notice how a lot of what Trump would say, the media would take out of context or frame in a negative way. I felt like I'd been lied to for almost 4 years. We shouldn't underestimate either the effect of what I call micro-cancellations. These are the small fallings out that have happened in friend groups, social circles, and families across America in the wake of 2016. Almost every Democrat who is voting for Trump has a personal story about being ostracized, shamed, or losing a close friend or family member over politics. I thought perhaps after Hillary's loss, the left would learn that bullying people, tone policing, and punishing people for wrongthink only turns people off. Oh, how wrong I was. In fact, the left reinforced its bubble, doubling down on calling everyone a bigot who didn't agree with it or dared to question its logic, facts, or opinions, and kicked anyone right of Bernie out of the party. The woke purity tests went mainstream. Out of a desire to go viral or appear virtuous on social media, fellow citizens are snitching on one another and publicly humiliating each other. Rejection is a powerful motivator, and it's staggering to conceive of how many potential allies the left has managed to alienate in 4 years. So common is this story that it feels self-destructive. As writer Mitchell Sunderland said to me recently, they are a right-wing recruiting machine. Bridget says, this is why, despite his personality flaws, many believe Trump is still the lesser of two evils. The thing Trump has going against him is himself. He is incapable of rising to the occasion. He can't transcend his baser instincts because that's exactly who he is. One conservative voting for Biden said something that stuck with me. He explained that he couldn't vote for Trump and look in the mirror and pretend that character matters. In many ways, Trump is a blacklight, revealing the human excrement that stains all our institutions, our politicians, our media, and our souls. He's revealed what's always been there. We just couldn't see it. Trump doesn't inspire us to strive for our ideals. He instead gives everyone permission to be the worst version of themselves. Even people holding their noses and voting for Trump because they like what he's done on paper express disgust and exhaustion with his constant drama, bullying, hypocrisy, blatant lying, cozying up to QAnon, and kissing of dictators. They describe him as a bad and selfish person and the biggest piece of S ever. Trump supporters heed this warning. I've heard the exact same thing, and you've heard it from me. I said earlier I wouldn't vote for him, but the riots really were, a kick in the gut. Now I feel like I have no choice. Many others feel the same way. What may possibly be the best quote, summarizing exactly how many people feel. Quote, I'm voting for the most corrupt, self-serving politician I've ever seen because the other side won't stand up against violence, Marxism, and race baiting. I feel like I'm drowning, and in order to keep from going under, I've had to throw my arms around a giant floating turd. I respect that statement. I do. I do disagree, however. They say that Trump is kissing up to dictators. I don't agree with that. I believe Trump is desperately trying to build better relations, and unfortunately, sometimes that's what happens. It often plays out poorly for us. I don't know if Trump is the right man to solve this problem, but I can tell you this, as someone who understands a little bit about the divide in between North and South Korea. Seeing Donald Trump cross the DMZ into North Korea with no security with Kim Jong-un wasn't kissing up to a dictator. It was a powerful sign of trust and peace, and that's what needs to happen. You may disagree with a lot of what Trump says and does, and I get it. I think they kind of nail it. There's a lot of people who feel that way, that in order to stop from drowning, you're grabbing onto a giant floating turd. But I don't think Trump is all that bad. In fact, I think he's done pretty well in the past several months. These peace agreements are very important to me and the way I see the world. Withdrawing troops is also very important. Pushing back on critical race theory is extremely important. And shutting down the riots is all extremely important. Donald Trump has favored school choice as well. And I got to say, you know what? I'm going to take some losses on this one, but I'm actually okay with it. I'm not voting for Trump as the lesser of two evils. He released his second term agenda and actually said, you know what? I do like it. Why? Because there's more alongside Trump that's populist than conservative. There are many issues that I think transcend typical wedge issues. I may lose out on the pro-choice versus pro-life argument, but I don't think I'm the arbiter of morality. And if people choose to support Trump in that regard, then so be it. But the Democrats are the other extreme. And that's why the pro-life Democrats are calling them out. I can't vote for that at all. At least the Republicans are negotiating. Talk about insane. Now, Bridget mentions some people may choose to vote third party, but I got bad news for you. Here's a story from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Green Party's legal team has ties to GOP and also represents counties that don't want party added to the ballot. Why not? Why can't we have more than two parties? What is this? I'm sick of it. The media's attack now on third parties is absurd. You want to vote Libertarian, Green Party, whatever, go do it. Do it with my blessing. It is a bigger slight to our founding fathers and our country to vote for the lesser of two evils, and it is to vote third party. You vote for who you believe in, and you will never waste your vote. If you believe the Green Party is the right choice, you must vote for them. If you believe Joe Jorgensen of the Libertarian Party is the right choice, you must vote for her. Voting for Trump out of fear of Biden is wrong, and voting for Biden out of fear of Trump is also wrong. For me, I'm going to take the win with Trump. I lean favorably towards him on many things he's improved upon. As Bridget mentions in her article, there are people who don't like his behavior, but I've seen his behavior improve quite substantially in the past year. I'd give him, on a scale of 1 to 100, I'm leaning around high 50% in terms of my personal favorability. High 50%. It's the peace agreements. You cannot take those away from me or Trump. I am not kidding. I can deal with Trump being a turd and all these other things, but if he's negotiating serious Middle Eastern peace agreements, then so be it. That's what we need. If he's withdrawing our troops, we need this. And if he's pushing back on the riots and critical race theory, what more can you ask for? I'm sure there's a lot of people who think the issue of choice versus life is paramount. And that's very important to me as well, but not nearly as important as world peace. So many Democrats are leaving the party. I think we are going to see another massive wave who are already telling us they plan to vote for Donald Trump coming in November 3rd. Does that guarantee a Trump landslide? I don't necessarily think so. Bridget may be just seeing confirmation bias. The people leaving are angry, upset, they're speaking out. But I will tell you this. That could be the silent majority speaking up. Trump voters, they're vocal. The Trump base, they're vocal. They wave the flag. They yell, Trump, 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 MAGA. It's easier for them. But there are Democrats who are scared to speak up, but they're not scared to email in private someone they trust, someone like Bridget. Maybe she's getting an actual sampling of people who say enough. I guess only time will tell, and we can only hope that there's no cheating involved, and we will see, as always, how it plays out in November. I'm going to leave it there. The next segment is coming up at 6 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastNews. It is a different channel, and I will see you all then.